All right, welcome back to another episode of Brendan doesn't really know much about what he's doing when it comes to farming, but he's given it a go anyway. And today, well, we've got a vineyard, a legitimate, actual vineyard. Pretty much all the shoots have shot, not without a hell of a lot of issues, but I've got a bunch to update you on. Let's go. Let's tackle just pretty much the very first thing. That is the most important thing, and it's probably the title of this video, is I had to sacrifice my philosophy of not spraying any systemics, because I sprayed one. Let me describe why though. So here, you can actually see the effect of this systemic here. So this is what they call a monocot selective spray that I've applied, which means that it selects for grasses, which is the problem. But you do notice everything around it here is still very much alive. So it's really only attacked the grasses. Not copped a bit of flack, but maybe just a bit of back and forth with a bunch of you guys on the channel about like leaving undergrowth. Why can't you just mow it? Why can't you just do a bunch of other stuff? And you are all correct. You could absolutely do it that way. We probably just won't get a crop for like 6 or 7 years, and we would likely have to pull all the infrastructure up and start afresh anyway because of one fundamental problem. I didn't establish the right cover crop to get like from the get-go. Look through here, you'll notice I've actually cleared all of this away because this is all Triticale. Triticale is an annual cover crop, which means that every single year you need to wait for it to go to seed and hopefully it reseeds, but for the most part you're having to run tractors up and down this just to continually seed the interrow. That's not what we should have done. What we should have done is established a permanent cover crop, a perennial cover crop, and ideally one with a lot of grasses that are winter active, not summer active. This here, all of this stuff that's yellowed, that's kikuyu. This is a summer active grass that, as I've learned, basically at the height of the heat, and which also corresponds to the least amount of water in the soil profile, it becomes hypercompetitive. So it will send out signals to everything else in the soil to stop taking water, so it can get very aggressive in taking water, and that really includes young vines. And so what was happening was, especially if you notice around this side where there's not a lot of kikuyu, there's a lot of growth, whereas say, look at these vines over here. See, a lot of these just haven't shot, they're dead. They'll need to be replanted. They did not survive at all, and that's even with irrigation. So the grasses were so competitive that they basically sucked up all the water that we could possibly give it, and effectively we spent a hell of a lot of time killing a lot of other things and not actually growing the thing that we wanted to grow, which was vines. Now, as to the debates or positioning that, well, why don't you just continually mow it? And you're right, like once this all gets established and these vines are a lot stronger than they are and they don't have grow guards and stuff like that, you know, because we're talking about that's all we've really got, right? We can't really use vineyard, I guess, infrastructure or like tractor infrastructure to mow underneath it without damaging the vine. So we need to wait for this to be established, and then yeah, we can totally move to a mow only scenario. Absolutely, for sure, and that's what I do want to do. What it does mean though is that weeds, you actually decrease the pressure for weeds the more that you mow, and increase the competitiveness of grasses because they grow outways. So the more that you mow, the more grass that you're gonna get, you know, basically. Now, grasses are good and bad. It just depends on the type of grass, and there's a lot of them. These kikuyu in particular are voracious. Kikuyu and cooch. I'll be honest guys, I didn't know that I would have to learn so much about grass when it comes to just growing vines. But I have sprayed non-anoic acid, so I didn't want to spray with herbicides. I've had to fall back on that philosophy as well. I didn't want to irrigate. I've had to fall back on that philosophy. And finally, systemics, I didn't want to fall back on that philosophy. I've fallen back on basically, or definitely, all three of those. So we have been irrigating for about 2 hours each day, and that's really gotten the vineyard to sort of this state, because if we maybe could have gotten away with it had we not had any undervine growth that we were also feeding with water. You have to pick your poison, as fittingly as that sounds. You either need to poison everything underneath the vine row to be able to preference the water going to the vine, or if you're not going to do that, you're going to need to irrigate even more to be able to get enough water to both. But all of this could be subverted. All of this could have been avoided had we just established the ideal cover crop underneath all of these things. So that would be a blend of different grasses, different legumes, different pollinators that all flower at the right time of year, but also particularly when it comes to grasses, because grasses choke other grasses, is to find a winter active grass. So when the vines don't need the water, the grasses become hyper competitive and they literally cover this whole area. That's what we want to try to get to. Now, bit of a thing on spraying though, you might like this. So I sprayed with this systemic, this monocot selective that killed, or it selects for grasses, and it freaked me the hell out because I didn't want to spray it anyway. I don't like systemics. So systemics are sprays that get into the actual system of the plant and kill it basically from the root. They do take a little while to take their effect, as opposed to something like nonanoic acid, which is an above ground foliar non-selective. So if I got it on the vines, it'll kill the vine, it'll kill anything that's green, but not necessarily the plant, just the ability for it to photosynthesize. Then after utilizing this, what is effectively like a very strong vinegar, the plant just can't photosynthesize enough energy and eventually dies. The problem with that is that it is a contact spray, so you need to actually get it physically on the green thing to die, and grasses are just full of lots of green things going like that, so you can't really get the spray in. So you need to continually spray this. I sprayed this entire block about 9 times, if not more. And each time it takes like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours to do by hand. But this is wild. This is weird. This is crazy science. So it selects purely for the grasses. You can spray it on everything else and nothing else is actually affected. So check this out. This was sprayed about a month ago. You can see the grasses are all struggling, but everywhere else, which also got hit with the same spray, is absolutely thriving. So what you've done, this is sort of like, it's like the anti-mowing. You know, like I said, mowing creates the ability for grass to be more competitive because you knock out all these other broadleaf things really, really quickly and grass can grow sideways. This applies a pressure onto the grass and actually allows everything else to thrive. And everything else is really not much of a problem. Like, this is all clover. These are all nitrogen fixing clovers. Like, this is top stuff. This is stuff we want more of. Unfortunately though, my job at the moment is exactly the thing that I wanted to avoid, which is scorched earth. We need to basically get back to bare ground as much as possible under the vines. Now we've got infrastructure in the way, it makes it much more of a headache to do, and re-establish a brand new cover crop right as the season is about to break. As you can see, there's a bunch of clouds up above. We're at the back end of summer, which has been a very, very, very dry but mild temperatured summer. But now the season's about to break. There's been a few sort of light rains, and it means that we can actually get equipment in here, work up the ground. Here, check this out. I'll show you how voracious kikuyu is. Look at that. This is just wanting these thick, man, they're nuts. Look at it. It mats on like crazy. Ugh. See, look at that. Look at the amount of roots that just jut out of this thing. There's just no way that you could possibly compete with something like this, which I believe kikuyu actually comes from, I think it's Africa. I think it is designed to grow in really hot, harsh conditions. And it's part of the reason why in Australia, they'll use this grass for lawns, because it's really, really hard to kill and it's summer active. So it always looks really, really good in summer. We just don't want it choking these little babies out. Actually, here's another really good example of what I'm talking about. So this is an area of the vineyard that actually got really hit bad with large amounts of grass. And you can sort of see how sort of stunted the growth is at the top of this row, as opposed to what we were walking through before, which had quite a lot of voracious growth, especially down the bottom down here, which is much more sort of a wet area, and the grass just hasn't reached down there. But sure enough, if we don't tackle it, it will eventually just cover everything. That's how grasses work. All right, so we're here in one of our implement sheds. This is what we are chucking on as a cover crop, or a replacement cover crop. So this is ryegrass, summer cocksfoot, subclovers, clovers, vetch, Ryecorn, annual ryegrass, mustard, radish, chicory, crimson clover, arrowleaf clovers. A lot of clovers and a lot of winter active grasses, as well as this thing called sulfurpril, because we need a lot of calcium. I should also note as well, this hasn't just come out of my head. This has been taught to me by a really important guy called Dylan Grigg. So this is all his, I'm not sure if it's his IP, but we definitely pay him to give us advice, and this is the advice that he has given us. The guy's an absolute jet, and if you're into sort of viticulture content that is like really nerdy but really easily accessible, jump onto his Instagram page, because it's freaking awesome, the stuff that he does, and we're very lucky to be working with him. He took one look at our vineyard. We're talking one look, we're talking within about 20 seconds. He looks at me and he goes, "You're probably gonna have to spray this." And I said, nah, I don't wanna spray this. He goes, "Okay, well, use this other spray. It's organic. It is this nonanoic acid stuff." So I did that 8 or 9 times, gave him a call, said, "Mate, I think we're gonna have to spray this." And he's like, "Yeah, I told you. Great viticulturists, in my mind, are like absolute wizards, and he is definitely top of the pile. So I thought I'd give you a quick gander at the organic herbicide. Now this stuff actually works really, really well, just didn't work really well in my circumstance. I could have absolutely gotten it to work here for tackling a lot of these grasses, but I would have had to be in basically a full-time job just spraying this until such times it got knocked back. Often it'll be called, in fact, these are often called knockback sprays because they just knock things back, they don't actually kill them. So it's this by Parent. It's nonanoic acid or pelargonic acid. There's another company that makes basically the same thing with a brand name called Slasher. And these are in Australia. I don't know if they're scheduled for use in America or overseas, but they worked really well, like really, really well. It just killed everything but the grasses, and the grasses were actually my problem, not everything else. Hence the reason I ended up using a monocot selective systemic, of which I don't actually have here, so I'll put it in the description below what I actually used. It was scary how effective it was. For what was almost a half acre, an acre, I used about 1 litre, which was actually like overkill in a 400 litre sprayer, so very impressive stuff. Not that I wanted to do it, tried really hard not to, but the reality is, I put the wrong cover crop in, it's on me. We've got extra blocks here. It's the reason why we only planted like half an acre to begin with. So when we go out and plant the other 50 acres, then we can get it right. Lesson learned.